I'm still with James Melville, social and political commentator. James, let's talk about Yvette Cooper and Ed Balls. They are, of course, wife and husband. She is the Home Secretary. He's a presenter on Good Morning Britain on ITV. Well, first up, it seems like she has been dragged into the Taylor Swift-gate, Freebie-gate saga. She's registered with parliamentary authorities that her free ticket to Taylor's Wembley gig was valued at £194.75. Now, actually, to be fair, she got that free ticket from her husband, but MPs, politicians in Westminster are required to register any freebie they got, no matter how it came to them. So she registered this as £194.75. She was in the Royal Box. The Royal Box, actually, you can't technically buy tickets for, but they are commonly thought to be valued at around about £1,000 each. She's undervalued this ticket in order to come safely below the £300 barrier, where you have to officially put it into the record of Parliament. So she's saying £194.75. The value of her ticket seems to have been £1,000. You know what this will end up? This will end up by saying, oh yeah, Yvette Cooper apologises for this. It was an oversight. Every time they do this sort of thing, they call it an oversight, don't they? The most famous example recently being Keir Starmer, who, having admitted to taking, something like £28,000 worth of free suits and £2,000 worth of free spectacles from Lord Wahid Ali, the Labour donor, subsequently, about 2 weeks later, said, oh yeah, there's another £16,000 worth of free suits I got. I inadvertently put that through as office expenses. Yeah, and I'm a Chinaman. I mean, who do these people think they're kidding?
Well, this is the ludicrous thing about it all. They're not being straight with people. They're being busted, and they're still sort of trying to squirm their way out of it with sort of disingenuous messages. What they should do is one of two things. First of all, not do it in the first place. But secondly, they should just be upfront and apologise and state the full value and move on. But I think it's framed around again by some of their policies. But also we're going through a cost of living crisis. You know, people are struggling on every single level. You know, it's a cost of taxation crisis, it's a cost of corporate greed crisis, wrapped around a cost of living crisis, wrapped around bad government policy that really aren't doing anything over a 3-year period to get us out of the cost of living crisis. And meanwhile, we see our politicians, whether it's Tory, whether it's Labour, two cheeks in the same backside. Labour said they would come in to change and clean up the mess in politics. Almost in a slightly different way, they were saying, but meaning the same thing, drain the swamp, as someone else once said. But they haven't. They're part of the swamp.
Of course they are.
And so but the problem with Labour compared to the Tories is this. A lot of people knew that the Tories were bad. I think the Tories knew that they were bad. Labour were trying to give off the impression that they were somehow good. It is their manifesto and their approach is the greatest example, I think, in the modern era of British politics of false advertising. They've broken promises, pledges. They've been disingenuous with the truth. They've been wrapped around the freebies crisis. They're implementing also austerity 2.0. So unlike the Tories' austerity, the first one was largely on the public sector. This is austerity on anything that's not the public sector. And so you put all that together, then people have got every right to be annoyed.
I think they're more than annoyed, James. They're disgusted. They're disgusted.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And one of the more disgusting aspects of this scandal, this escalating scandal, to be honest with you, is the relative silence of the other parties about it. You know, the Tories, Lib Dems, SNP, they're not saying much about this because they've got their snouts in the trough as well. Don't take our freebies away from them. My view, like probably yours, is, you know, why did a multi-millionaire, Keir Starmer, take free suits from another multi-millionaire, Lord Wahid Ali? Why does he need that? Why don't you people in Westminster, you MPs, all of whom earn, best part of 100 grand a year, some of you a lot more, why don't you pay for your own stuff like the rest of us have to. It's as simple as that. Now, listen, before you go, James, let's talk about television. Ed Balls, Yvette Cooper's husband, she's the Home Secretary, he's a presenter on GMB. Now, it's Good Morning Britain on ITV, the morning programme. He hasn't, with Susanna Reid, he hasn't been seen now for a long time. There have been 15,000 complaints about the following rigorous political interview that unfolded on ITV a few months back. It is a completely impartial and couldn't possibly be accused of being biased. It is the television presenter Ed Balls interviewing the politician Yvette Cooper. They happen to be married. Watch this.
Like many of our viewers will have done at home, since those terrible killings in Southport, there have been identifiable individuals on social media who have been inciting not just riot, but violence. They've been using racist language. They've been using falsehoods about what happened in Southport. This is happening on the social media platforms. What can be done, what should be done now by the social media companies and the police and the government to stop this happening? Because it's been happening for a week.
Well, you're right, Ed, that we have seen these things that are appearing online that are clearly criminal. That social media has put rocket boosters under the far-right extremist organisation and also some of the violence that we have seen organising some of the violence.
Well, that, James, is absurd. And by the way, what Ed Balls was doing there was giving her the opportunity to lay out Labour policy. He, of course, as far as I'm aware, is still a member of the Labour Party, was a former member of the Labour cabinet. You know, this guy is steeped in Labour. He's married to the Home Secretary. What on earth were ITV thinking, allowing him to conduct an interview with her on live television?
Yeah, it just can't happen. I mean, that was like almost like a framed, placed question. He was teeing it up for her.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think they do that at home?
Yeah.
They just carry on like
that.
It
was a bit like this, wasn't it? And what brilliant plans does the Labour Party have to tackle this scourge, Yvette? Well, Ed, what we've got lined up, you know, for God's sake.
Yeah, you can imagine them the night before. So let's just go through this. We'll be chatting tomorrow. It's just ridiculous. It just can't happen. This is a serious position that she's in. You know, we're funding her salary to be, you know, Home Secretary. It's pretty important. And he can't be asking questions like that. Even if he was tougher with the question, it still doesn't look great. It just looks strange. Yeah. I just think it's impossible for him to conduct that type of discussion with her. I think anyone can see through that. I think possibly ITV might have got to that conclusion.
And given his background, I think his whole tenure to do political interviews on GMB is under a serious question mark, and that might be why we haven't seen him for weeks on that show. But that can't go on. I mean, you know, I know of one channel, but not name it, GB News. They're in big trouble because they had a series of loads of Tory MPs interviewing each other, and quite rightly they got hauled over the coals about it. So we can't. This isn't objective journalism. A Tory minister interviewing another Tory minister about Tory policy. Well, it cuts both ways. It can't be the same for a Labour politician, which is what Ed Balls still is in the end, interviewing another Labour politician. It's not on. It's not on. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, the best journalists are the journalists who are impartial, but they also seek the truth no matter what side of the fence it is. You know, they can't be biased. So if there's a bad government with a blue rosette or a bad government with a red rosette, the journalist should be holding them to account regardless. It gets very, very difficult if that journalist happens to be the husband of the Home Secretary.
That's ridiculous, ridiculous. As you know, James, I pursue journalism without fear or favour. I hate everyone. James, not you though, mate, not you. Look after your head, and I'll see you next week. Maybe we'll have another injury to discuss. That was a great James Melville, social and political commentator.